Hello, in this video tutorial, let's look at hdfs. Hadoop has got two core components. One is the storage, another one is the processing. The storage component is known as Hadoop Distributed File System. In short, it's known as hdfs. And the processing side, you basically process the large data that you store it on hdfs, which are the MapReduce or Spark. So in this, the hdfs is a storage and it is quite different from the Linux file system. In the Linux file system is stateful. So if you're in a particular folder and you change directory from that folder, is relative to the folder that you are in. But the hdfs, the folders are absolute. And also, the hdfs is distributed in a sense. You can have about 10 or even 100 computers, and each one of them will have its own storage. And these nodes are known as the data nodes. So you can have 10 computers and each with say 2 or 3 hard disks and different data nodes. And then what you have is a separate thing called a name node, which will have the metadata as to which data is residing in which particular data node. So the name, always when a client tries to access some data from the hdfs, it's going to access it through the name node. For example, if I go into the Cloudera manager here, so let's click on the Cloudera manager, it's going to open it up. Log in with Cloudera as a username and Cloudera as a password. And once you log in, there should be a service called hdfs, which you can stop, start, or restart. So at the moment, it must be running. So if I go and click on this hdfs service here, so this is hdfs here, you will see it will have a name node. So the name node has got an active passive architecture. So you have an active name node and there will also be a secondary passive name node. So here's the name node and there's a secondary name node. So this is active, this is a passive, and also you have a data node. So if I click on the data node, you can see how many data nodes are there in the quick start. So it looks like there's only one data node in this quick start installation. Now if I go back and click on the name node, so let me click on the name node here. Name node keeps all the metadata about where the file is locating. For example, if you have a 1 GB file and the default block size in hdfs is 256 MB, so the 1 GB file will be split into multiple blocks. Each one of these blocks will be sitting in a different node, and also the name node will be keeping which block is residing in which particular node. And also the hdfs has got something called a replication factor for the fault tolerance. What if this one block is corrupted, or the node or the computer on which this particular block is residing goes down? Then you basically lose the data. So there, by default, there's a replication factor of 3. So each block will be replicated in different nodes. So if you have 3 nodes, each node will have one block. So if you take a file that is say 254 megabytes and then the block size is 128, then there will be 2 blocks, where there will be one of 128 and there will be another one of 126 MB each. And the name node will be having all the metadata about which block of a particular file is sitting on which node and so on. So now if I click on the name node, you'll be getting some information about the name node. So it's in the name node now, and then I can go and click on the name node web UI. So I right click on it and I will say open in a new tab. So the name node is opening in a new tab. So you can see the information when it was started, the summary is configured capacity is 54.46 GB. So in a real industrial strength Hadoop installations will be in terabytes. So here, because it's a quick start for the learning purpose, it's about 54.4 GB by default. It can be configured, and what percentage is it? Only 1.49% is used, because we haven't started storing any data into the hdfs yet. So this is just a high level on Cloudera Manager. And now the Hadoop user experience screen, you can see what are the files there at the moment. You can create new files, you can create new directories. So let's go and have a look at it. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to open the Hadoop user experience Hue. So Hue is opening up now. So it's opening up. So when you have an installation that hasn't got much memory, so when you're doing for learning purposes, it can be quite slow. So it is always advisable to have something with 32 GB at least when you have Hadoop installation. But the minimum requirement is about 12 GB. You need at least a laptop with 12 GB to be able to install Cloudera Quick Start. So while this is starting, I will also open a terminal window. So you can also execute Hadoop commands on a terminal window to create new folder, or you want to upload a file from a Unix file system into a Hadoop file system, or you want to download a file from a Hadoop file system into a Unix file system. You can do that via the command, Hadoop commands in a terminal window. So I'm going to open a terminal window as well. So if I want to see what the files are there in the hdfs, I can execute a command called Hadoop fs, and then I can say -ls and /root. So this should tell me what the folders are there in the ls root directory. So ls is pretty much look like a Unix command to list the files. So while it is running, I'll go in here and you click on the menu there and you can click on files. So when you click on files, you basically look at the hdfs view. And if I go back to the terminal, you can see the root directory has got benchmarks, hbase, solr, temp, user and var. So I'm more interested in the home user/Cloudera folder. So I press the up arrow button. So I'll click on user and then Cloudera. And I'll go to the same folder in here. So you got the user and then the Cloudera. So you got .trash and .spark staging in the user. So you can click on this to expand this particular section. So I'll be clicking on this. Here. And you get the full view. Now I'm going to create a new folder. I can either create it from here by clicking on this new button here and directory and type in the name of the directory. That's one way of creating, so I can use it within Hue. Or I can go into the terminal window and I type in Hadoop fs. If you want to know what options are available, you type in Hadoop fs and press enter. It will give you what options you can use with. And in this case, I'm going to say make directory, mkdir, make directory. As I said before, you need to provide the absolute path. So I'm going to create under user Cloudera, and I'm going to call it learn hyphen hdfs. That's going to be the new directory that I'm going to create. So I press enter. It might take some time. So basically this command is going to go to the name node, and name node is going to create some metadata, and then it is going to create the folder. So this is done. It's come back. Now if I go back to my hue and refresh this again, I should be able to see the new directory. So you can see the learn-hdfs, the new directory, and also you can say who the user is, what the group is, and also the permissions. You can also change the permissions. I'll click on it if I want others to be able to see it. So I click on this checkbox, and once the checkbox is clicked, you will see this action used to be disabled, now it becomes enabled. You can move to trash this folder. That means you're basically deleting it, or you can say delete forever. If you move it to the trash, you should be able to bring that back by clicking on undo operation, but if you delete forever, you will not be able to bring it back. And also you can click on the actions, and I can move, I can copy, and also I can change permissions. So here I'm going to change permissions and give user group and others to be able to write it as well. So I click on the learn hdfs and click on change permissions, and I'm going to give write permission to the group and also the other. And also you can do recursive as well if you have other folders and files within this folder. So I'm going to submit it. Now you will see the permissions have changed. Now I'm going to create a new file within the learn hdfs. So I click on drill down into the learn hdfs, and I go and click on new, and I can create a new file. So I'm going to call test1.csv. That's a new file. So I click on create, and then I can drill into this file by clicking on the file, and it gives you basic metadata about the file, the size, who the group is. At the moment the file size is 0 and the mode. And I'm going to click on edit file, and I'm going to add some data. Say this is an order, so I will say order ID, John as the customer. So order ID say 123, and then I'll add another 456. Peter is the customer, and then I go and save it. So this is a file and it's saved. Now if I want to display that file, I can go to the terminal window. I can say Hadoop fs -cat, and I type in this user Cloudera learn hdfs, and what's the name of the file? I think it was called test1.csv. So basically we created the file via the Hadoop user experience, the hue screen, and then I'm doing a cat. So it's saying no such file or cat, so it must have been a typo, or maybe this file hasn't been created yet. So the typo is in learn, so it's spelled lean. So learn hdfs and test1. So while it is printing, I'm going to go out of here, so I can press the back button to go back, and see, you can see the file here, and also the permission is at the moment read and write for the user, no execute for the user, and also only read for the group and others. So I go back to the terminal now. See, it says 123, John. So that's why we added to the file. And he has a 456 and Peter. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to now create a new file in the Unix file system, and then I'm going to upload that into the hdfs. So I can do it with touch, and I'm going to call this file test2.csv. Then I create the y command in Unix and say test2.csv. I go to this and I'm going to add another file, say 789 sam. So I go to press insert mode, 789 sam and 890 Peter, and I escape and :wq to save it. So now this file is saved, and if I do an lsltr, I can do there's a file called test2.csv. You can see it here. Now there are two commands to upload stuff from a Unix file system into the Hadoop distributed file system, which is hdfs. You do a put command. And if you want to download the test1.csv, which I have already created via the hue, I have to do the get command. So first I'm going to do the put command to upload a file in the Unix file system to hdfs. So I'll do the same thing, Hadoop fs -put, and which file I'm going to put is test2.csv, and I'm going to put it onto the Hadoop system, so which is user Cloudera learn -hdfs. So I'm going to put it onto that folder. So it's a Hadoop fs -put test2.csv onto that folder. So I press enter, and this should upload the file from a Unix file system onto here. And once it's uploaded, if I go and refresh it, I should be able to see the test2.csv file. You can also upload a file in a Unix file system or in your local computer from Hue itself by clicking on the upload button and files, and then selecting the file by browsing it. Now if I go and refresh here, I should be able to see the test2.csv. Oops, actually I refreshed the whole URL, but we can get back to it. See, now you can see the test2.csv. So, and if I now want to download the test1.csv, which is in the hdfs Hadoop distributed file system, I go back to my terminal and do the up arrow again, and in this case I want to do a get. So here I change the put to a get, and all you need is the target file name here. So it's user Cloudera learn -hdfs /test1.csv. So this will be downloading a file from Hadoop distributed file system into a Unix file system. So you can also do that here. If you want to download this file, I click on test1.csv and go into actions, and there should be a download button here. So I can also download from hdfs into the Unix file system through Hue. Also I can upload a file by going in here and selecting the upload files, and then it'll ask you to select files, and then I point to the folder in here, which will be the Cloudera folder, and I can select a file that I want to upload. So there are a number of ways. You can use the Hue, or you can use a terminal to work with the hdfs Hadoop distributed file system. So now if I go in here, would have been downloaded. If I do ls -ltr, I should be able to see test1.csv here. So you can see both files are in the Linux file system, and also it's in the hdfs. So it's a very handy tool. So you can go through Hue and file browser and then you can look at what file is in hdfs. And the HBase is the NoSQL database that's basically built on top of hdfs, and you can put data, you can update, modify information that's already on HBase. And also when you run Spark jobs, you can write your Spark jobs on top of hdfs. You can read data from hdfs, or you can write data to hdfs. So hdfs is really the key component that gives you the file storage system on which you can build your ETL jobs, and you can do your processing and so on. So Hive is an SQL like database, so you can have a file sitting on hdfs, and in Hive you can create a table that runs a MapReduce job. So you run like an SQL, so you create a table like an SQL table, and then when you do select star from this table, and it basically runs a MapReduce or a Spark job on the files that are already sitting on hdfs. So there are different ways you can process files that are already sitting on hdfs. So in the other tutorials which we look at through Java, how do we use the Hadoop API to manage this hdfs. So at the moment we have seen how we can do it via the terminal window, and also we looked at how we can upload the files and so on by using the hue, but the amount of functions that you can do by these will be limited. But if you do use Hadoop API and programmatically do it via Java, you can do quite a few things. So we will look at that in the next tutorial. So we will go to Eclipse and we will write a simple Java program that will talk to the hdfs.